Hello everybody, John Morgow here, checking in for a new Flat Earth video for you. I hope you do enjoy it. The case for the static planar Earth is really quite simple. Either the Earth is a spinning ball, flying around in multiple conflicting curvilinear trajectories, or it's a stationary plane. This is about as simple a dilemma as one can possibly encounter. If one is interested, simply set out to practice geometry and physics, measure the Earth, and study bodies in motion, and you will have your answers. This endeavor is instantly clouded by so many preconceived notions which were instilled into our subconscious since we were just little kids. So we need to try to set all that aside and simply measure the Earth for curvature, and measure the Earth for axial rotation or orbital motion. Nothing fancy, nothing paranormal, just good old physics and geometry. People often make the mistake to conflate flat Earth as some bizarre conspiracy theory, when in fact, just a simple endeavor of basic geometry, physics, and applied science. So, either the Earth has the necessary curvature to result in an overall sphere, or it does not. Either the Earth is spinning around and orbiting thousands of miles per hour, or it is not. When measuring for curvature, we first need to know what exactly we're measuring for. While the indoctrination system, the educational system, does a great job drilling the so-called fact that the Earth is a sphere into our heads, it doesn't really do much in the way of showing us how to prove it, or what to measure for. Ironically, the first time I was ever introduced to the concept of measuring the Earth for curvature was in the book Zetetic, written in 1865 by a flat earther. I do remember that when I was a little kid, my dad told me that we can't see the mountains in Northern Virginia from Southern Virginia due to the curve of the Earth, but that was about as far as that went. Never during any classes all the way up through college did I perform an exercise which estimated the expected amount of Earth curvature over a given distance and then measure for it. If you approach a globe Earth believer and ask them to measure the Earth for curvature, they will stare at you blankly and say, "What do you mean?" So, over a given distance, we should expect the spheroid Earth to vertically descend a given amount based on the geometry of a ball with a radius of about 4,000 miles. Now, a great hip pocket equation that you can use is 8 inches per mile squared, or you can do the miles and distance squared by 0.666. So multiplying the mile squared by 0.666 renders the result in expected vertical descent due to curvature in feet, whereas 8 inches per mile squared renders the result in inches. So it's just a little bit easier to do miles squared times 0.666. Now it's worth mentioning that the people who are out there championing the curvature formula and applying it to reality are flat earthers. The other day I was discussing flat Earth with a gentleman who'd never considered it, and he was kind of scoffing at me for being a flat earther, and yet when I mentioned to him, something about measuring the Earth for curvature, he said, "What exactly did you mean by that?" Isn't that ironic? Globe Earth believers, as a rule, have absolutely no clue how to measure the Earth for curvature. They don't even know what expected curvature they should measure for, and if you ask any globe earther, they could really care less about measuring the Earth, never even crossed their mind. And keep in mind, I'm not picking on globe earthers because I was in the exact situation a few short years ago prior to looking into this topic. Never considered measuring the Earth for curvature, never did it, never bothered to even think about it. Now that we have in fact measured the Earth for curvature and found there is none, the only logical answer is that the Earth is flat. Not because of some whimsical flight of conspiracy theory, but because the Earth doesn't possess the necessary curvature to result in a spherical shape. So, if you're standing at the beach looking out over the ocean, or really a large lake would be better, as standing waters are less prone to bulging and undulation as compared to tidal waters, if the Earth is a ball, then the waters at your feet should have a very specific degree of convexity to them, and on the other hand, if the Earth is a plane, then the same waters should be level. Now, you can use complex software to verify that the geometry is sound here, and up to any distance within human capacity to observe, this equation works very nicely, up to several hundreds of miles. So, an object that is taller than the water level, say a boat or a lighthouse or a skyscraper, should vertically descend, proportionally with the distance from you, the observer, at a very specific rate of 8 inches per mile squared, assuming that the Earth is a ball with a radius of about 4,000 miles. So, using this equation, at a distance of about 10 miles, the tip of this lighthouse at 10 miles distance should descend about 66 feet. You multiply 10 times 10 times 0.666. 20 miles, 266 feet. 50 miles, 1,600 feet, etc. So if a lighthouse that is, say, 200 feet tall can be seen at 20 miles away, then the expected curvature, according to the ball Earth geometry, simply isn't there. Now, the hip pocket calculation of 8 inches per mile squared isn't 100% complete. So looking at this diagram here, the expected curvature rate begins at the point where your line of sight becomes tangent to the alleged curve of the Earth, in theory. So the observer, starting from left to right, the observer standing at the top of the mountain on the left, assuming the Earth to be a ball, his line of sight is going to become tangent to the curve of the Earth, hypothetically, at the horizon, and at that point, the 8 inches per mile squared begins. So, in order to determine just exactly how much the Earth isn't curving, you need to do a little bit more math than just simply find the distance, plug in the numbers. You need to find the observer height, the expected horizon distance based on that height, again based on the geometry of a ball Earth with a radius of 4,000 miles. So if you want to get it exactly accurate, you first have to subtract out the observer's height and therefore subtract out the distance to the horizon. And in most cases, if you're like standing at the beach, you're going to be about 6 feet above sea level on average, and that places the horizon at about 3.5 miles according to the ball Earth. This long distance landscape example, the observer height is much higher than 6 feet. The dude's taking this picture on the top of a mountain, so it is way more drastic than a horizon distance of 3 miles. As you can see in this diagram, the horizon distance is allegedly or hypothetically 117 miles. Of course, it doesn't matter which way you slice it, the curvature doesn't exist. But just making sure that caveat's in there, because 8 inches per mile squared, while it is adequate to determine this, it isn't 100% complete without first, as I said, determining the observer's height above sea level, subtracting out the distance to the horizon first, and then multiplying the distance in miles squared times 8 inches, or 0.666. Now, it's worth mentioning that this type of observation and calculation isn't harmful to anyone. It can only lead you closer to the truth one way or the other. It won't make you stupider for doing it, certainly won't make you crazy. I will say it is not globe earth believers who are going around making such observations, but instead it's the flat earthers. It's flat earthers who are making observations of the world to determine whether the curvature exists. Since the globe earthers who did such things are now flat earthers, it is sort of an exclusive club, isn't it? And I suppose I sort of have to mention that I did reach out to the guy that took this world record holder for long distance landscape photograph a few years ago, and I asked him if he was a flat earther, and he didn't understand what I was talking about, why I was asking him this. And I told him, explained to him basically what I'm telling you now, that his picture is good evidence of the lack of Earth curvature, The dude really had no idea. He was just doing it for the landscape, long-distance landscape photographs. Now, of course, this simple exercise in geometry is rebutted by the staunch clingers to the globe, who will first argue that you're stupid and crazy, but when that fails, they will simply argue refraction. They argue refraction causes the lighthouse to appear in a different position than it actually is, so the Earth is still a ball which only deceptively presents itself to us as a planar surface due to refraction. When flat earthers sent this image of the Chicago skyline from Grandmere State Park, from over 50 miles away across a body of water, into the news, the sort of idiotic newscaster realized that this observation doesn't conform with the doctrine of rotundity, so he literally just sort of blindly claimed that the image was a mirage.
Until I found this photo from Grandmere State Park. This is from Joshua Nowicki, and what you're seeing here is a mirage. We typically would not be able to see this from the Lake Michigan shore. We talked about this last night. Conditions are right on the lake that we're actually seeing a mirage of the Chicago skyline. Very interesting here. Here's what's happening. This is a good example of a superior mirage. So Joshua was on the Lake Michigan shore. He was looking towards the west, and Chicago's beyond the horizon. Should not be able to see it. However, with the right conditions, we have an inversion. We have cold air near the cold lake water and some relatively warmer air above it. This will bend the image of that skyline back towards the viewer. And so typically we would not be able to see this. This image would be viewable from much, much higher in the sky, up in space. But instead, we're able to see it on the Lake Michigan shore. Very fascinating.
Of course, refraction is a variable depending on a number of factors like humidity, temperature, and etc., but Globers have cleverly dubbed 7/6/R standard refraction, which mathematically negates the lack of curvature every time by presupposing the curvature exists in order to prove the curvature exists, again using mathemagic. Now, there are tons of examples of skyscrapers, mountains, and lighthouses and ships being visible far beyond the geometric allowances assuming a sphere Earth. This is such a simple concept to prove, much like the pool table analogy. So like pool tables are planar surfaces and pool balls are spherical, right? Neither one of those statements is a theory. The flat Earth reality isn't a theory either. The Earth is simply immeasurably, obviously flat. So here's a picture of the Pic de Fenestralius from 273 miles away. The tip top of that peak right there should be over a half a mile below the horizon line. And take a look at some of these other long distance shots which simply do not align to the sphere Earth hypothesis. According to simple geometry, the Earth is a plane. There are some other indicators of the Earth's visible lack of curvature. The horizon remains at eye level regardless of altitude. Were the Earth a sphere, then the horizon line should drop down proportionally with altitude. Many people, myself included at one point, believed that they could see the curve of the Earth from a tall vantage point at sea or from the window of an airplane. This effect is due to the horizon line being an equidistant circle all around when there are no obstructions, so like when you're high up in the air or out at sea, and therefore the edges of the circle around you appear to be a curved line. Look at the Red Bull jump. Felix Baumgartner jumped from this high altitude weather balloon at about 20 miles up, if I'm not mistaken. And clearly the curvature, which we can see here, is the result of a fisheye lens, which causes all horizontal lines to appear curved. When you view the horizon from within the capsule, as you can see here, it's at eye level, as it always is. It appears that during the Red Bull jump, the director of photography created the illusion of Earth curvature intentionally. Now, whether they had any sort of ill will behind that, I don't know. Maybe just artistically they wanted Earth curvature, so they faked it. But they certainly didn't place these cameras willy-nilly, so they intentionally set up the shot to appear like the horizon line curves when it in fact does not. If the Earth was a ball, then why would anyone need to fake curvature, right? The second part of this quick study is that of physics, or the study of bodies in motion. So, much like the first part, this part is also very simple, very cut and dried. Either the Earth is spinning upon its own axis at 1,000 miles per hour, as they claimed, or it isn't. Either it's orbiting the Sun, the galaxy, etc., at 66,000 miles an hour, or it isn't. Bodies in motion all follow certain laws of physics. That's why they're called laws of physics and not emotions of physics or artistical liberties of physics, right? They're called laws of physics. So we're told in school that while the Earth is spinning and orbiting so fast that we don't notice it because we are also fixed to that reference frame, so the only difference in relative speed or accelerations are noticed and not constant motion. So if you're sitting in your car doing 80 miles an hour down the freeway, it doesn't feel like you're going that fast, does it? Much like the Earth spinning right now. You don't feel it because you're traveling with it. Now, first off, rectilinear motion and curvilinear motion are two different things altogether. Now, if your car was spinning around on its axis while traveling around in circles, then you would certainly feel that, right? If you've ever ridden on certain spinning rides at the fair, you'll understand how centrifugal forces affect your body and your equilibrium. Furthermore, the Earth is definitely a fixed frame of reference. This fact isn't even argued by Team Glober. For all intents and purposes, the Earth behaves, from a physics standpoint, as if it is perfectly stationary. And again, that's agreed by all sides of this argument. Now, since everyone was convinced that the Earth was a spinning ball since we were just little kids, nobody ever questioned that axiom. So the baller logic, or illogic, goes as follows. 1. The Earth is a spinning ball no matter what. 2. The Earth is also a fixed frame of reference. 3. Spinning ball Earth behaves as a fixed frame of reference. So proper logic would have looked like this. 1. The Earth is a fixed frame of reference. 2. A spinning ball cannot behave as a perfectly fixed frame of reference. 3. The Earth is therefore not a spinning ball. That would be sound logic, but instead we're stuck with the anti-logic of globetardia that was instilled in us since we were kids by the federal indoctrination system. Again, since the unquestionable axiom is carved in stone first, the Earth is a spinning ball no matter what, then any experience which contradicts that axiom is ignored. But in truth, there are some really basic tests that anyone can confirm to determine whether the Earth is spinning 1,000 miles an hour at the equator or not. So take a look at some airplane flights from east to west, and then the return flights from west to east. So like LA to New York and New York to LA, typically about the same duration. Since the Earth is spinning, allegedly at 1,000 miles an hour at the equator, towards the east, you would expect the westbound flight to be a lot shorter in duration than the eastbound flight, since when it's traveling from New York to LA is racing towards the nose of the plane at 1,000 miles an hour, while the plane is racing towards LA at 500 miles an hour. The relative difference in speed should allow for a very short flight indeed. On the other hand, on the return flight, the plane would be racing against New York, both traveling in the same direction, racing against one another. So really, the 500 mile per hour plane might never make it to New York, right? New York might lap it before it ever got there. The truth is, basic common sense confirms that the Earth is fixed. It's not spinning, it's not orbiting, it's never moved a single yard. Never has, never will. Any and all physical tests like gyroscopes and accelerometers, any measurements one can possibly think of, indeed, show the world to be a stationary plane and a perfectly fixed frame of reference. One of the biggest mistakes most people make when they first stumble onto this topic is to try and carry much of the heliocentric model with them over to the flat Earth hypothesizing. So like the sun, moon, and other planets appear to be spheres in the sky, so the Earth is a disk in space while all the other planets are spheres? This may seem to be sound logic, but it is more of the same anti-logic instilled into our psyche since we were kids. The sun, the moon, and the planets are nothing like the Earth. They are secondary features in the sky. They are lights which may or may not be physical spheres. They appear to be circular lights, and perhaps they are spheres, but the Earth is the physical plane of reality, nothing like unto the stars or the heavens, and above which the heavenly luminaries orbit above and around the Earth, concentric with the pole star Polaris. In analogy, just because pool balls are spherical doesn't mean that pool tables are necessarily spherical too. Somehow, people think that because there are spheres flying around in the sky, then the Earth must also be a spheres flying around in the sky. The ball Earth shtick is flimsy as hell, in honesty. If you can get past the stigma attached with the flat Earth, yet another piece of propaganda courtesy the federal school system, it's really quite obvious. The most difficult portion of this journey is to take the topic seriously and take that very first step. And be completely honest with yourself throughout, following the facts wherever they lead. It's important that we don't take preconceived notions as unquestionable axioms and cherry pick our inquiry according to that. That's the opposite of science. It's important to point out that the globe Earth narrative insists on making fun of flat earthers and how stupid their antiquated beliefs are. Flat Earth cosmology is complete and sensible, believe it or not, once you understand it. While it is different than heliocentric cosmology, the observations which led to the cosmologies are the same, of course. So the observations which led to the heliocentric model are the same observations that led to the flat Earth cosmology. The globe Earth narrative also relies heavily on false exclusives, and that's a big red flag to look out for. The globe Earth claims that certain aspects of reality are only possible on a sphere Earth and nothing else, so no further inspection is necessary because XYZ is only possible on a sphere. Upon further inspection, of course, if you actually do inspect it, you will find that said aspects indeed work on a flat Earth equally well, if not better, on a flat Earth than they do on a sphere. So just a couple examples would be circumnavigation. You remember they told us that Columbus circumnavigated, Magellan circumnavigated the Earth, proving it once and for all to be a sphere. And of course we all know that circumnavigation is only possible on a sphere, so how could you dummies think the Earth is flat since we know we circumnavigated the Earth? Of course, if you have a magnetic central north on a planar surface, then circumnavigation works just as well on a flat Earth as it does on a sphere. Another example of this false exclusivity is gravity. They say what goes up must come down, therefore the Earth is a spinning ball. And I would say that gravity, or what goes up must come down, works perfectly well on flat Earth. It is merely relative density and buoyancy which dictates an object's level of equilibrium. So helium balloons rise, stones sink to the bottom of the ocean, boats float, hot air balloons rise, etc., etc. It's all density and buoyancy. It has nothing to do with gravity. Gravity is a theory which is only necessary if you first consider the Earth as a spinning ball in space. Now, all in all, this is such an important topic to look into because we've all been deceived about this basic tenet of reality. For whatever motivation lies behind it, we were lied to since we were just little kids. As far as I can tell, our parents were too, so were our grandparents and their parents before them. So this has been going on for a long time, and it is deliberate. Like, it's not like someone accidentally lied to everyone that the Earth is a ball. This is something that's been going on a long time, very deliberately. So you could say that it's an insidious lie. The implications are staggering, as instead of an insignificant speck of dust in the grand scheme of things, our world is the most important real estate in the known universe. The Creator possibly sits right above us, with the world as his footstool, as it says in the book. The Creator is very real and very close. We're living through a period of time known as Revelation or Apocalypse, the unveiling of a deception which has fooled the entire world for many generations. So this is a very important and exciting time, and I just hope that you're on the right side of this thing. While this video was just a cursory introduction, with of course more to follow, this topic goes very deep. While there are a million different arguments against flat Earth and what I'm telling you here, I can assure you that there are logical, cogent explanations for every last argument. Flat Earth is extremely sensible, it makes perfect sense, and the more you look into this, the more that you'll find that this spinning ball Earth is just absolutely ridiculous. It's absurd. I've personally been deeply involved in this topic for like 6 years now, and to date I've only found evidence which supports the flat and stationary Earth hypothesis and debunks the spinning ball Earth hypothesis. Now, of course, when I first started looking into this, it was to debunk the topic. I saw some videos with, flat Earth in the title, and so I wanted to debunk it. And in trying to debunk it, I found that, well, it's actually the truth. So you can't debunk the truth. That's not how that works, right? So from a scientific standpoint, absolutes are typically avoided, but in the case of flat Earth, I can honestly say absolutely that the Earth is flat and stationary. It's not a question. The Earth is not a spinning ball. It's obvious. It's the truth. So I hope this video finds you well. Thanks so much for watching. God bless you guys. If you'd like to become a channel supporter, there's links below in the description. More content on the way. And as always, spread the word, spread the world, and peace out, everybody.